transfer things. Okay. It's being live streamed. That keeps showing up. And we're recording to the cloud. Holy moly. Okay, lots of buttons. All righty. Well, ladies, thank you for joining in live. I think we had 22 people that registered, which is always fun. And I know that everybody loves recordings. So how does it get any better than that? A lot of the times, those who show up are the ones that kind of help me, in a sense, facilitate the call, because I have my stuff in front of me, but I also go with what the flow is of what's required with the people that are on the call. And I also have a ton of information that I just kind of want to share. So what we're going to do on this call is, in the chat, is I'm going to ask questions, and you can put your answers in there, and then I'm going to work off of that. So it's a little different than I've done it in the past, but that way I can kind of deliver everything I want. So welcome, everybody. My name is Lynnae, Growth Junkie Coaching. We have a handful of people that are brand new to my work. Handful of you are currently working with me. Handful of you know me from life in general and all of that good stuff. So the topic is judgment. Okay, so how this class percolated was out of my tools to reset your mindset. I was looking back a week ago when, we had this here in California, we had this thing happen where we were supposed to have this big hurricane, Hillary. And what I became aware of was I watched all the energy in people's world, because that's what I can do. And everybody there was a lot of fear going on. So I brought up the conversation of did it re-trigger any fear? What's going on in your life? And then we kind of just got to where we're having this conversation right now of, if it's not fear, and then I did a poll, what is limiting you in your life right now? And the poll, and the top winner was judgment. So that's how we got here. And where we go, we shall see. So what I'd like to know from the three brave souls that are on here with me in the chat, I think when I sent out the reminder to everybody was, are you stopping yourself with judgment? Where are you doing judgment? And I think those are the two things I want to know so that I can facilitate you gals on the call and go with it. When I first was going to do the call, it was kind of really like I was really going to look at the energy and talk about where, judgment's been my very best friend my whole life, and how judgment almost killed me. And share that process with y'all a little bit, and then talk about how to get out of that. But then I started to see a turn today in the energy of where we're holding ourselves back from judgment from others. So I need participation from you three. Where in your world right now are you being with judgment? Is it judgment that you want to look at and write it in the chat? Judgment on yourself? Or is it judgment where you're resisting from other people, places, and things? Okay. And so I'll stem as I'm waiting for you guys' comments on that. This morning I shared in my Phenomenal Woman membership group that I had, and it was perfect because everything always aligns exactly. I had my second mean email come back to me. And there's a thing in business, when you start to raise people's little furriness, that means you're doing something right. Because what it means for me is, we really have been working in our group work, is how do we get from the place of where we're at now, from hiding, contracting, and limiting from where we're being seen. So we're doing all this energetic work right now to blast that out and really be seen. So my email list has grown so much. So people have to actually be invited. They want to be on my email list, but apparently today she didn't want to. So delete. But what I got from that was maybe the conversation of where we'll go today is that when you get hit with that judgment, because when I read it this morning, it was like, you have that moment of like, what am I going to do with that comment? What am I going to do? Where's that judgment, that energy? Because I'm all about energy. Where am I going to put it? In the past, that would have wiped me out. In the past, I might have pulled back, shrunk back, and thought, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? I shouldn't have said something. And all it was she didn't like my invitation to the judgment class. That's all. So obviously has nothing to do, none of it ever has anything to do with us. But in that moment, I thought, oh, maybe again, everywhere that we're all choosing how much we're going to show up in the world, in our life, our living, and our business is based on how much judgment we're willing to receive. Okay. Some of you who have worked with me, you remember the old saying, for every judgment you receive, you make $10,000 more a year. For every judgment you push back, you resist, you lose $10,000 a year. I don't know if those numbers are real, but Access likes it. And when I heard that, because I like money creates thing, I'm like, oh my gosh, what would it be like to receive judgment and not allow it to impact my world, impact and go into my body? I'm very aware that almost all the people I work with, I'm really clear that the group of women I'm working with and are called into my space, we're all hypersensitive, we're all empathic, we're all psychic, we all have this knowingness and taking into our bodies, but we don't all have tools on how to function with all of that. So let me read judgment from others, even though I don't care. Okay, maybe I do. So good, Kim, that's helpful. So let me ask just a question for you, for everybody. I understand that there is that place of like, I don't care, but is there somewhere in your business, let's go business, that you aren't showing up to the fullest capacity that you are, that you're capable of sharing in your gifts because you're afraid, fear, there's going to be a distractor there, but you're afraid of something. And again, this is deeper. Okay, so maybe judgment from others on decisions I have to make regarding life. Okay, I'm too worried about their thoughts of what I decide. Awesome. Thank you, Sandy. Let me percolate with that one for a second. And judgment of myself, especially when triggered by my husband's judgment in my phone, hard to talk. Got it. Okay. So with all of that, you guys know I love the clearing statement from Access Consciousness, and it sounds like right, wrong, good, bad, pop, pop, all nine shorts, boys, po, beds, and beyonds. And it's made to fry your brain. So you're like, don't understand what the heck I said. And basically we bring up a question, it brings up the energy and it dissipates it. So right now, anywhere that we're like trying to define judgment, just for the sake of it, anywhere that you have a point of view, this is funny, about what judgment is, what judgment isn't, what you do with it, would you just destroy and uncreate all of that? Okay. And so that we can kind of have this open space of what is judgment? What am I doing with it? If I wasn't doing it, what else could I be creating? So my intention was to talk a little bit about myself, which I very rarely do with classes. But I will share a little bit, is that I believe I came into the world with judgment on me as my number one thing for how I decided how I was going to do everything. So, I mean, this is 32 years of work of like uncovering, discovering, and discarding all of this like stuff. I'm now aware of why I use judgment so much, but we live in this reality, right? That is about getting things right or wrong, right or wrong, right or wrong. So if we're doing that in this duality, in this reality, you're right, I'm wrong, you're wrong, I'm right, then in that, most of us sensitive people will always go to the wrongness of us. So I was always, and thank you, Trina, for the head shake. Okay, it's good. Because that's what we do in this world. It's like we're all trying to figure out where we're right, where we're wrong. And access consciousness, their point of view, and I like it too, is that in the world of consciousness is what I talk about and bring about. And awareness is that everything exists and nothing is judged. Everything exists and nothing is judged. Now, to get to that point, you, number one, have to be aware of it. And then there's got to be a lot of tools that you bring into your life to have that space where everything exists and nothing's judged. So, for example, that email this morning, when there was a full-on blown judgment for me, at me, the tool that I use, again, my life story is 32 years in recovery. And a lot of that recovery is in something in a 12-step program called Al-Anon. And Al-Anon is really all about kind of the same tools. Al-Anon is where you're always taking care of other people's needs instead of yours and getting wrapped up into that. So I learned different ways to deal with that. But Access has just this cool thing that says, interesting point of view of your point of view of my point of view. It's like this thing where, like, so when I got hit with that this morning, I didn't go into what's wrong with me. Like, what did I do wrong? Was the email offending? All that. It wasn't. It was like, okay, cool. Apparently I'm being seen, which is what I want with my business. Interesting point of view of her point of view. Interesting point of view of my point of view. And I ran that energy back and forth. I was like, interesting point of view of my point of view, interesting point of view of her point of view, interesting point of view of my point of view, until it got lighter and lighter and lighter. And when that happens, when it gets light enough, it just drops. Right now, when judgment hits us, if we don't have like the right tools, we take it in. And then we hold it solid, and then we got to try and figure out what the heck is wrong with us, or we got to try and figure out how to protect ourselves, or we take on other people's. So I'm kind of like jumping all over, but it's an awesome place to be in my life today, with a lot of practice of like, to be hit with something that I've hid from my whole life. I never wanted to be judged, did everything I could to in all of my businesses, which is why I always capped myself out. Because in order to grow, in order to be seen in anything, you have to be willing to be judged. And I hid from that so dynamically, but now I'm more confident with my awareness of like, okay, interesting point of view. I don't have to align and agree with it. I don't have to resist and react to it. I just get to be, how cool is that? What am I going to choose next? Okay. So I think this is kind of addressing a little bit of everybody's like the points, everybody else's judgments on our own judgments and judgment of ourselves, especially when triggered by husbands. Okay. So I have a couple little things I printed, little pictures, and I'll send them out as a thank you, but I want to read them so that we can kind of just open up a little bit of the energy around judgment. And you might have already seen a couple of them. It says, every judgment you make stops you from receiving anything that doesn't match it. Every judgment you make stops you from receiving anything that doesn't match it. Okay, so let that percolate a little bit. As long as you're doing judgment instead of choice, nothing will change. Okay. As long as you're doing judgment of yourself or somebody else, it is probably not going to change. And if it does change, it will be really crunchy and hard to get it to change. Okay. Because if you're like me, I'm all balls ahead. I can make anything change. I can force the crap out of anything. But meanwhile, my body doesn't want to do that pain anymore. I don't want to force things. I want things to just, I want that ease. How different would your life be without judgment? So these are questions that you're going to walk away with today, and I'll send you little things. And they're great questions of like, what would my life be like without judgment? I don't even know. And where would I start? What tools can I use? And if you give up judgment as your primary source of motivation, what would that create for you? I used judgment in business against myself all the time. It's quite dynamic, because if I could judge the crap out of myself enough, I would always create something greater. So it's a weird thing to just talk about. You probably will get a little bit, but I don't want to create that way anymore. I want to create from asking questions in the place of like just space and expansiveness of like, not like, what did I do wrong so that I don't do it wrong again? If I'm in that awareness place, it's like there is nothing that's wrong. There's nothing wrong. Everything I choose is going to create something. So when I do business, that's how I try to function most of the time. If you give up judgment as your primary source of motivation, what would that create for you? Does anybody on here use judgment at yourself, on yourself, to create something? And you may not even know that you're doing that. It's kind of a self-discovery when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm actually using it against myself to motivate myself. You could probably see this a lot in, like, just popped right now, like someone who's losing weight. You're not going to choose to lose the weight until you judge yourself and you hate yourself enough to actually choose something different. Okay. I'm a recovering eating disorder, so I can talk about food as well as alcohol and so forth, but my eating disorder, which I don't always talk about freely, and there's no particular reason, is truly what got me to my bottom, was that self-judgment, judgment. And an eating disorder has its own life of its own, but using that judgment is if it gets bad enough, then I'll choose something different using that energy of judgment. Okay, so Kim says, let me take a breath on that. Hold on, now that I've just shared all that. Sometimes when I bring up the eating disorder stuff, it's still so like, I talk about drugs and alcohol all the time. The food is so part of my story, but it hasn't popped out in my world of sharing as much. So everything that is. I totally do, and I freeze because it won't be perfect. My logical brain says, stupid, I know better. Okay, so cool. So Kim, you know the tools, baby, and I'm glad that you're sharing that. The work that we're talking about here is not logical. If you could logical yourself out of all of this stuff, you would have already done that. This is energy. This is stuff that is deeper. And what we're doing is we're like, I have this thing now, I'm really like, I'm branding Lynnae's 3 A's of change. Okay. Because this is what I've done to change everything. It's like, number one, awareness, right? So we're talking about where judgment is affecting us. That's huge. Most people wouldn't even acknowledge that they're doing judgment. So yay. Once we acknowledge something, we can create something different. Okay. Then the second A, 3 A's for change, is allowance. I was always taught, and I learned from great programs, and I wouldn't do it any different, but to accept things, accept it. And I learned over the last 4 years or so that acceptance was an energy that I was still forcing. Allowance was like, I'm going to be an allowance that I'm judging or I'm not judging. It's a whole different energy. I mean, I could talk just about allowance. And then the other 3 A's of change is asking questions. If we ask questions to all these things that you guys are saying, if I go back to Sandy, question Sandy. So it would be, how do I make choices, not decisions, on my life? So how do I make choices? How can I make choices in my life? Period. And then you would be period. Because what we want to do is we want to make choices and decisions and make sure we do them right so that everybody else doesn't get upset and so forth. So that's that personal work of like, can you choose for yourself? Can you choose? So that's the allowance part. And then asking questions. And again, it's not logical. It is energetics. What else do I want to say? And then what popped this morning is I had a session with a client, and God, I love the work that I do. And then I went to the space of maybe the conversation today should be something about what Access talks about is PES Juniors, projections, expectations. Projections and expectations always lead to separation, judgment, and rejection of yourself. Now, if you've worked with me or you know all of this, you might have a moment of like, duh, I know that. But it's so amazing how it's like, how might we still might be doing that? So I'm I invite you guys to look at if judgment is happening. And so this session I had today, you know, it's a tricky thing when you're working with somebody, especially when they're new, and you're like, by the way, the problem that you have is because you have a projection and an expectation. And I was like, sometimes it's hard because I'm sharing that's something that we don't want to hear. Like, oh my God, I actually do have an expectation of that person. I have a projection of that person. So it takes it just takes being willing to receive, like, oh my gosh, I have a projection. I have an expectation of that person, place, or thing. And the only thing that we can do with that is then judge ourselves, resent them and us. Then the barrier goes up, and then we separate from it. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Kim's laughing. Okay, I know it's nothing new, but it's like, again, hearing it. So the little one that I have right here was expectations are judgments under construction. Isn't that cute? Your expectations, my expectations, are judgments under construction. So like, if you just sat with that for a little bit, and that could be the end of the call of like, where do I have expectations on myself and on others? And energetically, what happens, because even if you don't say it, it's an energetic connection. It's setting myself up to have judgment of myself and of them, because I'm going to try and figure out who's right and wrong. And sensitive people always go to what's wrong with them. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's our gift. And it's a gift once you start to learn how to work with it. But it wasn't a gift for years for me, because it was like, I'm just wrong. I mean, literally everything in my head, no one ever knew this was going on for me. But in my world, I was wrong all the time, because that's how I was trying to figure out things. You're right, I'm right, you're wrong. And so then I would judge myself, and then I would try to get myself out of all the confusion in my head. Versus today, number one, I don't have expectations. I don't have projections. I actually learned this 32 years ago in 12-step in recovery. That was one of the very first things I learned was anytime I have an expectation, it's always a setup for resentment. So I got that a long time ago. What I didn't get was the other elements of what's energetically, the exchange is happening. So I learned not to have expectations. So that's a whole nother journey, because then there's a whole nother journey with that. But so I didn't have expectations, and I didn't have projections, which I'm grateful for. I learned how to do that. I learned how to do that in Al-Anon and my kids and sponsoring people and now being a coach. But what I didn't realize was the other elements of it is that when you have, and here's the thing, everybody has expectations. Everybody has a projection until you choose to become aware that you're functioning from there. So then you're like, okay, cool. I have a projection, expectation of myself, of my business, of him, of her, of that. How can I question? How can I choose to not do that? And then when we're doing it unconsciously until it becomes conscious is when we set that expectation, it comes back as that judgment. Like I just said, I think I repeated myself. And then the judgment, and then you have to put a barrier up, boundaries. you know, and anytime you put a boundary up, girlfriends, anytime you have a boundary right now, anywhere you have a boundary, you're cutting yourself off from receiving. Again, that's a whole nother conversation. Okay. That has probably been what my last 4 years have been about in my journey of like so much coaching work I've been doing, because I wanted more. I wanted more. And I kept doing and doing and doing and nothing more. But it was because I had so much judgment, and my judgment cut off from receiving. And so I'm just here to say that, you know, more personal growth and work, the more that you work on that, the more the receiving is ease. Okay. So, and then the boundary, the wall cut off. So if we don't have boundaries, and I understand sometimes we have to have boundaries for protection and things that are going on in our lives, but I'm just talking in a general relationship with somebody, what we have is allowance. What we have is, wow, that's interesting point of view, of her point of view, of my point of view. Get it light, find some space in that, and not align, agree, resist, react it, fight it, but just be that neutral energy. And I know what I'm saying is like blah, 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 because it does take practice, but anything that you practice will create the change. Boundaries up. So we want allowance with that. And then we want to ask questions. Okay. Kim says, then I'm too, okay, totally. Do I freeze because I won't be perfect? My logic brain. And then you go, then I'm too busy to create. Okay. You have to tell me more about funny, not funny. So, oops, Elizabeth just popped on. Let me pop her on. So
hold on one sec. Let me look at my notes.
Okay, so that's just an awareness of like you're wanting more, creating more, but then all of a sudden you have an awareness right now, like, oh my God, I'm so busy that I'm not creating anything. Okay, cool. Are you judging yourself, or are you just aware? Lynnae's 3 A's of awareness, of change is like, I'm not going to judge myself. I'm just going to be aware. And then I'm going to ask a question. If I was to create some time, what would that create? Okay. Can I see a nod of heads in the sense, let me do this. I'm not going to bring anybody on live, but in the comments, totally judging. Okay. Nod of head if it's connecting with everybody. Okay, cool. Hi, Elizabeth. Glad to have you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put it back on. I'll leave it like this as a gallery for a second. So let me go back to my notes. Okay, judgment. Let me see where there's so many places I can go with this. One of the things that I have started, I have a new 12-week course that I'm launching. It's next week. But it's about really going into a lot more about consciousness and talking from this place of like, where are we functioning? What energetic level? Okay. And it's based on vibrations and in what awareness and what consciousness are you being? And judgment is at the bottom energetically. The bottom of energy that you can be is shame, and then guilt and judgment. It's the bottom. You can't really energetically go any lower than that. So how does it get any better that you're like, okay, cool. If I'm functioning in the energy of judgment, can you see at that lower harmonics, you know, it goes from, I forget what the numbers are, from here to like up to the vibration of love and joy and so forth. But shame and judgment is absolutely the lowest frequency you can be. Okay. So again, don't judge it. See how judgment turns on yourself, because then all of a sudden you can judge yourself for judging yourself. But the awareness of like, wow, what else is available? No wonder I'm not receiving the ease, because I'm just vibing around in this judgment place and everything is heavy. Okay. Sandy says she's connecting somewhat. Okay, cool. Connecting, just hearing what I'm saying. Like I said, I'm speaking at all different kind of levels here. So somebody, I want to just keep, let me see. Give me a question about judgment in your world. Where is making you really think? Okay, that's what it is. One person, where are you doing judgment? And if you didn't do it, what else would that create? So does someone want to come on and just give me something so we can look at it? Hi, Elizabeth, you're live. Do you want to tell me where are you aware of any judgment you're doing?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Golly, I'm aware that I'm doing judgment. God, in every area of my life. I know it sounds kind of, I don't know, naive or immature, or I don't know, but you know, everywhere in my life I do judgment.
Okay,
It's
cool.
softer. It's softer than it used to be,
Okay.
but it's still there.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So yay that it's softer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because of the work that you do, the tools, the awareness, and so forth. Okay. So let's go. Let's go. So Elizabeth gives me a great one. She's like, oh, I just have judgment everywhere. I love it. Okay. And we all probably do in little places. Judgment can only exist if we have a point of view. Let that sink in. So pick one spot. Limitation in judgment. Again, I'm speaking from the awareness of energy. We can only judge something if we have a point of view about something, whether it's right or wrong, or good or bad. So let that just kind of like, if there's one particular thing, like say there's somebody that bugs the crap out of you and you're having a situation with them. Okay. Most likely it's because you have a point of view about what it is that they're doing. You've decided it's right. You've decided it's wrong. There's this energy exchange, and now judgment is up. So it's simple for me to say, oh, just be this interesting point of view, neutral energy. Period. I know I say that easily. It's just being in the practice of anything of like, okay, I'm doing a projection there. I'm doing an expectation of that's the way that these things should be. That's the way I should be. My business should be here, but it's not here. A lot of shoulds are there. So what does that ping for you, Elizabeth, when I say that? Does it piss you off, or does it just open things up a little bit? Like, oh yeah.
It makes me aware of how easy it is to roll back into judgment, and that when I'm aware of it, I'm able to stop it. So it's like really working on the awareness of sliding back into it, because that for so many years was habitual. And to change something habitual takes practice and determination, because it feels good to not judge. It feels really expansive.
Yes. Yeah. And in this reality, we are smushed to live in judgment so that we aren't expansive, fabulous, magical human beings. Okay, so just know we're fighting an interesting thing, because behind the judgment, behind the energetic distractors, behind the energetic addictions is you, the magical, fabulous being that you are. And you know the saying, underneath the pile of poo is you. So what we're doing is all these points of views, all these judgments, we're learning to dig ourselves out underneath all of this other stuff. Some of you are new to my work, so you probably have no idea, or you have a little bit of an idea, but I have the awareness that, you know, truly, Access says 99% of our thoughts don't belong to us. They've actually showed, I was just reading a study, there is a scientific study that 95% of our thoughts are autopilot. It's the same thing. So my question then for us, when we are doing judgment and being judgment and experience judgment, where did it come from? I learned mine. I learned it. I learned how to do judgment on me. I'm really just getting this at a whole different level. From a little person. If I could judge me enough, I could figure out how to fit. Never really fitting, but I could figure it out somehow. But it turned against me. So that thoughts, your judgment thoughts, where are they coming? Are they even yours? What are you judging? Our points of view create our reality. Whose point of view is that? Whose point of view is that? The client that I was talking to that was new, and I just kind of like popped her into all this. I was like, you have a point of view that this person should be doing this and not that. So the only thing that can happen is now that you can judge her. But what it did was it flipped back on her, and now she was judging her. So it's just an interesting thing. And what would it be like to have a life where that you were so aware when you were doing it, that you had that pivotal moment of like, wow, I'm going to choose something different than a projection and an expectation of that person. I'm going to have my own awareness, like in the big scheme of life, did that judgment and projection actually even matter? That's what it really comes down to. We have these old points of view of like, and it's like if you stop long enough and you have awareness in your own world, it's like, does that even freaking matter to me? And it's like, no, it doesn't, but it did to my mom. So now it matters to me, until all of a sudden I realized it doesn't matter to me, because we get a lot of it from our programming in our childhood. And that's just the way it is. So there's no rights or wrongs with that. It's just awareness. Let me go back over here and say, Sandy says, why would you want to fit? Are you asking me that question, or are you asking you that question? Okay. And then also remember, why is one of my words I suggest we eliminate from our vocabulary, because anytime we do the why thing, we're always trying to figure something out so that we can get it right, so that we can judge if you're right or you're wrong. You see how that works? Why is that happening? Why? So that I can figure out if I'm right or wrong, so that I can figure if I can judge myself or not. Versus, what would it create if I didn't fit in? What would it create if I did fit in? I have that awareness today. I didn't have that before. I think we're always trying to always fit in. Most people, that part of that journey of like, what would it be like if I didn't fit in? And I think this last year for me is like this awareness of like, I never freaking fit anywhere, but I've sure done everything to make sure that I do. And that has now, spilled over into the body pain of like, I can't be that anymore. And I don't even know what that means, like when I say it, but I know what it means to me. So that's why back working with you. Sandy's back working with me as a client. So there we go. Why would be, why would you want to fit in? Why do we want to fit in? We want to fit in so that we're not judged. We want to fit in so that we're not wrong. What if you don't fit in? Well, we don't fit in. So everywhere that you're trying to fit in, where you don't fit in, would you destroy and uncreate that, please? Right, wrong, good and bad, POD, POC, all 9 shorts, boys, POVEDs, and beyond. What would it be like to be? There's so many places I could go with that. Just everywhere that you're trying to fit in and you don't fit in. Would you destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good and bad, POD, POC, all 9 shorts, boys, POVEDs, and beyond. And if you actually had the space and the ease that you don't fit in wherever it is that you're trying to fit in, you would actually get to be the energy and the magic and that space that you truly are. that's the gift of it. So everywhere that you're trying to fit in, everywhere that you're trying to do it right, everywhere that you're judging yourself to get it right, do it right, be it right, understand it right. Yeah. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobads, and beyonds. You know, that's been a journey for me as a coach. Is like, because there's so much coaching online, right? And I literally about 6 months ago, I'm like, stop, Lynnae, stop going out there to figure out what's going to make me fit. I can't fit. And I keep trying to make myself fit, whatever that means. So anywhere that you're trying to make yourself fit, is anybody trying to make themselves fit somewhere? Okay. So anywhere that you're trying to make yourself fit somewhere, be liked somewhere, be understood somewhere, so that you don't get judged, or you do get judged. But it doesn't matter if you get judged, because if you get judged, you can receive more of you and all the goodness. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobads, and beyond. Okay, Trina's saying yes. Okay. Let me read what I have in front of me, just to kind of bring the energy back to kind of like something. It's probably everything I've already just said. Whenever you're doing a projection and expectation of any kind, you are separating, judging, and rejecting anything that would give you awareness. That's another piece. So everywhere, oh my gosh, there's so many, everywhere that you're not choosing your awareness, that if you would choose your own awareness, it would change everything. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobads, and beyond. Everywhere that you're not choosing your own awareness, that if you chose your own awareness, it would change everything in your world. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobads, and beyond. Lynnae's 3 A's of change: awareness, and then allowance. Like, what is that? I don't even know what that would be. And I'm not going to judge myself that I haven't done that up until this point. I'm just going to do it right now. I'm going to have my awareness. And then I'm going to ask questions like, if I choose my own awareness, what's that going to create? I do know that part of the journey of when you start to choose your own awareness, you start to rock the boat. That's called recovery. I always called it the canoe. I haven't talked about the canoe in a long time. Like, all of a sudden you start having your own awareness and you're like, I don't want to be on that canoe with everybody else, because that canoe keeps circling. It's like the circle of judgment. And I'm going to get on my own canoe. I remember that in recovery. And that boat, that canoe, is now going to be off balance because I just jumped ship. So in order to have your own awareness, you also have to be willing to be judged. Oh my God, that was perfect. I just got that. That was so good. I got that, but I just got that. So in my early recovery, I didn't have all of that acknowledgement. I just knew I had to get off the canoe because I was sinking in the canoe, because I didn't fit in the canoe, whatever that means, to get onto my own canoe so I could start making my own choices, my own awarenesses, my own that. But when I really look back on it, is I had to get off that canoe because the judgment was killing me, to get onto my own canoe so I could have my own awareness of what I could create for my world. So you might, jumping off the canoe pisses people off because you stir everything up, which I know is why a lot of us don't want to change, because it stirs people up. But if you go a little bit further than that and just go, okay, my own canoe, one step at a time, maybe I'll buy a canoe and then I'll stare at the canoe. I mean, it's part of, that's where coaching comes in. That's where part of working with somebody else, where you're like, okay, I'm ready to like have my own awareness, but all I can do is think about buying a canoe. Now I'm going to buy the canoe and I'm going to get in the canoe. And when you get in the canoe, everybody, and then now I'm going to start rowing. So that's a great analogy. It was the canoe. So you might have your own canoe in some areas of your life, and you're just canoeing away. Like, it's just fab. You got your own stuff on, like you got your own canoe decorated the way you want it. And you're in your like flow, right? You're like, I'm like on my canoe right now with you guys. And it's like happening, and you're no longer going upstream. It's like you're in it. That's what I'm doing right now in my life. It's so freaking cool. But there's other areas that the canoe's like still parked around. So like, where's your canoe parked? And in that canoe that you haven't gotten out of, is that canoe full of judgment? And would you have to get out of that judgment canoe and get into the new canoe? And you'd have to start asking a shitload of questions, which you may not know, but that's where I come in. Access comes in, a coach or whatever you need to ask the right questions. If I choose this, what will it create? If I choose this, will I feel different? Will I feel more expansive? Okay. Let's see what else. So we were talking about awareness, like having your awareness. What questions can you be or do or have or create or generate that would take this beyond my awareness? That was kind of a big clearing. What questions can I ask to have more awareness? See, the difference with energy work is we don't have an answer for any of it, which I know sometimes is very frustrating. And then you get an awareness and then it switches like that fast. That's why coaching energetically, it's like bam, 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 versus we're not going into the thoughts, the feelings and emotions. I'm not doing that because it's too heavy. It's too painful. We're just going to go, what am I aware of? What am I willing to be aware of? What am I not aware of? That if I was willing to be aware of, it would completely change my path of judgment. And if I was aware of it, would I actually have to judge myself there? If I was actually aware of what was happening, would I actually be judging? And everything that is right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobeds, and beyond. How many projections and expectations are you using to avoid creation you could be choosing? And everything that is. That's good. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobeds, and beyond. I know if you're new, that's a clearing statement, but it just makes all the energy not know what to do. It's like a delete button. Ask yourself this question again. How many projections and expectations are you using to avoid creation? Could you be choosing? And everything that is, just let it right, wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobeds, and beyond. So if there's something in your world that you would like to create more of, have more ease with, have more space with it, ask the question around that. In this particular area, how many projections and expectations am I doing? How many projections and expectations am I choosing? And by choosing those, I'm actually avoiding creating anything else with ease. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobeds, and beyond. Okay. Clearing every projection, expectation, separation, judgment, or rejection you have of that person. I now destroy and uncreate all of it. So that's a good one. If you got someone, I just had a huge download. In recovery, we always, and I think they do this kind of on a spiritual thing. If you have someone that's pissing you off, you like pray for them for like 20 days, or you do this, pray for the goodness and all that. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good energy. But there's this energetic element that when we do that, we're actually not destroying and uncreating the tethers, the energetic connections that are there. And I know that might be like, if you're new to me, you're like, what are you talking about? They're there. So this clearing is an energetic clearing. All the projections and expectations, separations, judgments, and rejections I have of this person, I now destroy and uncreate it all. Poc and pot it. Right, wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobeds, and beyond. There's anything that's pinging in your life right now that it's just a question you could ask. Anywhere that I have a projection and expectation of myself, I'm now going to destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobeds, and beyond. I mean, seriously, why not? Everywhere I have a projection and expectation of myself, the only thing it's going to lead to is judgment. I'm now going to destroy and uncreate all of that. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to know it, but I'm going to ask a question. Right, wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobeds, and beyonds. That is the number one killer for in general, right there, especially when I work with women in business. Your life, what's going on in your life is what's showing up in your business. So they're not separated, but sometimes people will coach for particular things, but they're all together. We're all together. It's all together. But if that judgment is what happens in our business, it's like the number one wiper outer is like, my business should be here. Judgment, 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 judgment. So you just get yourself in that trifold loop. So all the looping you're doing about where you're judging, where you should be, which isn't even real. It's all a big fat lie anyway, because you're the one who's decided that. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, poets, and beyond. So there's more work that can be uncovered and cleared in there, but anywhere you're doing that, you go into the projection, expectation, and there's the judgment, and then there's pulling yourself out of the hole again. What would it be like not to pull yourself out of the hole, but just be aware of like, wow, where am I doing judgment and expectation of me and my business, and not using my awareness, not asking questions, and being an allowance of whatever it is that's happening. Okay. My last notes here, you're powerful, you're acting like positive, don't get how amazing you, okay, that's another part. Before we wrap up here, let's open up. You've got me for a few minutes here or whatever. Do you have any questions? Anything that I brought up? This is being recorded, so other people will listen to it, so keep that in mind. But can I answer anything? Can I help clear something for you? Okay. Did it bring up new awarenesses for you? Okay, Trina's coming.
Yeah, I got real emotional there for a bit.
Okay, it's okay. That's cool. Cool. So what if, for right now, you took it out of the heaviness of the emotions and you just went to awareness? There you go. Okay. We are conditioned, oh my gosh, so conditioned to feel everything. That's okay. But feelings are very heavy, they're very dense, and it's just like trudging. That's why I love energy work, because I want to pull you up a little bit and go, what are you aware of? Okay, I'm aware of I'm having these feelings. I'm aware of having these emotions. Okay, cool. What can we do with that awareness? And, you know, I can't answer all that in this question and right here, but just so people understand, sometimes cognitive coaching will maybe go to that place, but let's just lift you up. And anything that's heavy emotionally like that is not yours. There you go. You got it. It's not yours. Okay. So everywhere we're trying to heal everybody else, and it's heavy, and we're having all these thoughts, feelings, and emotions about it, would you just let it pop? Destroy and uncreate it, untether, untie, do whatever it is that you do, but just destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, all 9 shorts, boys, poets, and beyond, just for right now. Because behind all of what you're experiencing is the power and the potency of you. Okay. Anything else?
To be specific, but thank you.
Yeah, okay. Anything, good old access tool is anything that's heavy, doesn't belong to you. As an infinite being, we're light, happy, joyous, free, ease, joy, and glory. When it's heavy, oh my gosh, my whole life, heavy. Heavy. And the more and more, it's like, none of it's freaking even mine. And that's where I have a desire to work, as this is coming out, more and more with empaths, more and more with highly sensitive people, more and more, and it's who I talk to anyway. But if I actually had that conversation, like you have this great ability to feel everything that doesn't belong to you, and thank God you made it to where you're at. Yay! You know what I mean? But I'm here to tell you that with tools and just other stuff and coaching, if I could ever provide that for you, there is a whole new place where you get to allow all of that shit to happen and you get to just watch it. It's a process. It's a process, but it's possible if we're willing. The number one thing is if we're willing to show up, if we're willing to take little bite-sized pieces of like a little bit more of us here and there and here and there. So, okay. You're welcome. So if it's heavy, it's not you, it's not yours. If it's light, it's yours. So when, I know Sandy's looking at a lot of questions in her life right now. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Everybody wants me to do this. I should be doing that. Stop. Center into your body, find some space and just write it out, like whatever that is. But also just like, if I was to choose this for me, not everybody else, what would this create? And be in the energy of that awareness, like instantly, you always know what's right for you. You always know. But then we go into, I can't believe I'm going to say this word. Then we go into denial. I heard that word at a meeting the other day, Tuesday. I heard the word denial in forever. I mean, my whole world was about denial for years. Denial. I don't do denial. I do awareness now. So it's like having that. It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to bring that awareness up. I don't have to tuck it away. I don't have to change anything right away, but just acknowledging that like, oh my gosh, if I choose this, it's really light for me. But if I choose what everybody else wants, it's really heavy. And that's where the canoe analogy comes in. You're going to piss everybody off on the canoe. Yeah, I know, but it's a process. So today you have a lot more awareness of like, you have choice. And that's, I guess, what can end on that is that everywhere that you think you don't have choice, you've locked yourself into a no choice reality. Okay. Everywhere that you have a no choice reality, it's a lie because we have choice. We've just decided we don't have choice, which then locks us into the judgment of the choice. But we do have choice. And I know choice, when we choose for ourselves, it's scary and it's very, very powerful. And it changes the reality of everybody around us. So it is a process. So thank you, Trina. So if you're new to me, you'll get you'll get the recording tomorrow. What I will attach in there is a link, if you've never worked with me before, for a little 30-minute free conversation, because we've just lit up your whole world, and so I don't want you just hanging out there. It's like, if we need to close anything up or clear anything tomorrow, we can do it in a free little 30-minute conversation. Anybody who's listening to the recording, or if you're like, I don't know what the heck you just talked about, and you're a weirdo and I don't ever want to talk to you, that's okay too, because I'll take that judgment. Or you know what, you want to know more, but you need to pick my brain, you can use that. So Sandy Fuente is spinning. Okay, cool. So if we're spinning with energy too, what I need you to do after this, because we moved a lot of energy, get up, move your body. Get outside if you can, put your feet on some grass. I know that sounds corny, but ground with the earth a little bit. Okay, that's that spinning. I moved a lot of energy for all of us today, and just ground, find yourself again, and then go back to the rest of your evening. Okay, cool. You're welcome. You're welcome. Everybody else feel pretty complete for right now. Let me take Miss Trina off of unpinned so she doesn't feel like she's right there. Okay, gallery. Anything else, anybody?
I think maybe I just need to process through my own part of, I just typed it in the chat. Hold on. Or wait, I didn't type in the chat. I typed it in my notes. How I'm showing up in my life is how my business is showing up for me. Oh man, I'm just judging the heck out of that. Because it makes me go like, how am I showing up in my life? What am I not doing in my life?
Okay. So everything that is, would you destroy and uncreate it, please? Let me finish the process with her, because I can't leave her like a hot nugget on that. So that pile of shit right there that you just created. So would you destroy and uncreate it all?
Yeah.
You judge yourself everywhere. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod, poc, online, shorts, boys, po-beds, and beyond. Let me give the space of awareness for all of us that what we're being in our lives is what is showing up in our business. There's a totally different energy there.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I really spun that one out.
It's all right. It's all right. You went to the judgment place. You just went to like, okay, I'm doing it all wrong. And I'm just reminding us that if what you heard, just hear it this way, it's all about what are we being? That's really what
Right.
we're ultimately getting to. So who and what are you being in your life? And most of us don't even know what that is until we start going, oh my God, who am I being? I'm being everybody but myself. Okay, who are you being? So if I'm being that here, what is showing up in my business? And then based on, this is where that future self work comes from, is like, I'm being here, but I'm still doing this. What would it be like to be that everywhere? But we go to the old habits of like, okay, I'm now being somebody new. You are so new. So you are the infinite being, you know, but who are you being in that new future you? Because you're still doing as if you were.
Oh my gosh.
Everything that's called future magical self. Right and wrong, good and bad, pod poc, all 9 shorts, boys, pobads, and beyond. And that 12-week coaching course starts on Thursday, next Thursday. So if you have any questions about that, and we're going to spend 12 weeks going into where you're at now to what is it and who are you being for that future you. So
wow.
excited. Okay.
That's entertaining to see how much I judged in how I took that and what was actually really being said.
Because we're amazing.
Wow.
So that's
I just went from like falling asleep to like, whoa, all of a sudden I feel like I just had a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
That's
And
funny.
so what you got to see, which is so fun with Kim's done a lot of work with Access with me, with just years of stuff, is that watching her on this call, she kept getting heavier and heavier. If you did notice that, she just kept getting lower and lower in her thing. Like I was gonna like,
And all of a sudden it was just my eyeballs.
video, you know, we're losing her. She's going out. But what was happening energetically, I'm aware of it. She wasn't as it was, but she got it, was the energy was getting heavier and heavier and heavier on her because she was probably doing judgment unconsciously.
And I was in so much judgment that I didn't even want to say I was in judgment because I should know better, which that was
right. So everywhere that you should know better is also something I want to teach more on is it's our ego. And our ego sets us up constantly. It's an energetic ego. So Kim kept just like, we were losing her. Now she came on, she talked to me, we pulled up the space, we cleared it, we moved it, and she's a whole new energy. That's how energy works for energetic people. That's how fast we're up and down all day. Pour me another drink. Thank you very much. Right?
Gosh, seriously.
Yeah, wow. You wonder why we use our other things when we're doing that. Until we have the tools of like, okay, no, I got my own back. I got my own back.
Yeah. Wow. So. Thank you.
Karina, I'll be talking to you tomorrow.
Gotcha. Hey, by the way, Monday I'm flying off for 2 weeks in Ireland and Scotland.
Beautiful. Enjoy the energy out there. Expand. Whole different vibe out there.
Absolutely. So send me good vibes.
Sure. You'll be a different energy there, and you'll get to be able to be aware of like, wow, how I function in different places. So
helps me separate from the energy here that I need to separate from. So it's helpful.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm excited, whatever that is and whatever that's going to create. So, all righty. Well, thank you for those who joined live, who got that facilitation. It's part of the, I got to have people to work with, and all of those who were brave enough to show up and watch this as a recording. I look forward to hearing from you all.
Thank you.
All right, you guys. See you later.